What's up everyone, Darcblade here bringing you a patch update video for The Last of Us. This is for the patch 1.06, which is released today. That is Valentine's Day, February the 14th, 2014. Now this is quite a substantial patch and they have changed and fixed various things, mainly in the multiplayer, but they have addressed a few single player issues as well. Now, firstly, for the single player issues, you need patch 1.06 in order to play The Last of Us DLC, the Left Behind chapter. The patch also adds 10 new trophies for the single player. These are all related to The Last of Us Left Behind DLC. Now, moving on to the multiplayer changes, Naughty Dog have fixed various networking issues. Firstly, the network update rate has doubled. Basically, this has doubled the rate player movement updates are sent peer-to-peer, reducing latency in the game engine to 66 ms. The lag detection checker is now stricter. This should detect basically players that have significant lag and that cause server problems. When the lag detection checker occurs, your character will be frozen in place and you will see the network trouble icon appear on your screen. This is to ensure that the lagging player cannot gain an advantage in the match. They've added a network trouble icon. If you are seeing this network trouble icon, which is like a plug that's unplugged frequently, it means you're having connection issues. Anyway, moving on to the more gameplay side of things for the multiplayer. Survivor mode has had a fix. It has fixed an issue that prevented the 2x4 to spawn in the center item cache. Next, they've made changes to interrogation mode. Under certain conditions, the defending team would respawn too quickly and too close to their lockbox, making it too difficult for the attacking team to make any sort of progress. To alleviate this problem, Naughty Dog have made the following changes. All players will have a minimum respawn time of 7 seconds if their lockbox has spawned. A team will not respawn instantly when the whole team is wiped out either. If their lockbox has spawned, of course. The spawn exclusion zones around the lockboxes have now been adjusted across all maps, so defenders don't spawn too close to their own lockboxes. They fixed a few other things in interrogation mode as well. To improve spawning, they've reduced the time that dead allies affect the down weight on spawn points from 40 seconds to 20 seconds. They fixed an issue where players could get downed by a bomb just as they were opening a lockbox and continue opening the lockbox while at 0 health. They fixed an issue where a lagging player could continue unlocking the box for some time after being attacked or downed. And lastly, they fixed an issue with the end of match music stinger, so it plays when the you win or you lose pop-up appears on screen before the final scoreboard. Not much of a big change, but still a little change needed. Overall, I still don't really play interrogation mode that much, but I can understand the changes made to the mode, as having players spawn too close to their lockboxes and making it too difficult for the attackers to actually get any progress was needed. They've edited a few things to do with the reviving and bleeding out mechanic of the multiplayer. Under certain conditions, the revive system can allow teammates to get their teammates back up and into combat too quickly, as when there are multiple players reviving. To address these issues, Naughty Dog have made the following changes. They've reduced the speed bonus that players assisting with the revive from 50% to 25%. The reviver skill now only applies to players who started the reviving action. Parts from reviving players are reduced from 100 to 50 after that player has already been revived. This resets to the default number after the player's death, of course. And lastly, in supply raid and survivors only, bleed out time for a player, that's 15 seconds in supply raid, 40 seconds in survivor, has now been reduced by 25% each time the player is revived, up to a maximum of 50% off. This resets, of course, on the player's death. Now, the changes to the reviving and bleeding out mechanics are, well, I didn't really see a problem with them in the first place, if I'm honest. Reducing the bonuses you get from reviving players will lessen the incentive for teammates to revive you, especially when you're playing in pickup groups or just playing public matches. If you're playing in a team with friends, then this shouldn't really be an issue. Moving on, they've changed various aspects of the melee part of the game. They fixed an issue where shooting a player who was in the process of a melee attack could result in the melee attacker aborting the melee move after the melee victim was already registered as being hit. They've also made a change that now melee attacks will only abort when the attacking player is in the wind-up phase of the attack. However, Naughty Dog have stated that depending on your latency, you may be seeing the wind-up phase when in fact it already has registered as hit on your opponent's screen. Finally, they fixed the shiv dance. If you damage a player, then that player won't be able to shiv you for the next 3 seconds. This, in my opinion, is a great fix, and I'm glad they've addressed it. Overall, the melee changes are welcome, in my opinion, especially the fix to the shiv dance. Next, they fixed an issue with spawning. They fixed an issue where downed players would make it more likely for teammates to spawn near them. This has now been fixed. I personally didn't see really an issue with this, but if this change is needed, then it must be needed. Next, they fixed various issues with supply boxes around the maps. They fixed an issue where the machete could spawn as a comeback item when players already had the machete. They've changed it that when spawning a comeback item, a Molotov will only spawn if the player already has 2 bombs. If the player already has 2 bombs and 2 Molotovs, no comeback item will spawn. They fixed supply raid and interrogation, where players with 1 execution and only 1 or 2 deaths would get additional crafting ingredients from supply boxes. This will no longer happen. They fixed an exploit where a player could fire off a couple of shots before opening a supply box to get extra ammo. Players now receive ammo in more precise quantities, so players won't get a box with 5 bullets when they should only get 2 bullets. As a result, more ammo boxes will spawn with various amounts of ammo. Naughty Dog's made slight adjustments to the ammo given for certain weapons to keep them consistent with the current ammo given under the old scheme. They fixed an issue where players could lose their comeback items or comeback weapons by being killed after opening the supply box, but before actually picking that item or weapon up. Now players will have the same chance of getting that item or weapon the next time they actually open a supply box instead. They fixed an issue in Survivors where players could get additional items by opening a box but not actually picking the item up, and then go into another box and opening that said other box and getting the same item over again. They fixed an issue where the player who was the last one standing would not get any ammo from a supply box. Another issue they fixed is where a flamethrower spawned as a comeback weapon, it couldn't be picked up. They've also rebalanced the ammo in comeback weapon spawns. Overall, the changes to the supply boxes are welcome in my opinion, and hopefully should bring some stability to the supply boxes, because at some times they felt incredibly random and sometimes unbalanced. Next, they made a few changes to some of the various maps in the game. They fixed an issue where 2 of the supply boxes on Billstown would not respawn in Survivors. They fixed an issue in supply raid and interrogation where a supply box behind Sammy's sign on Billstown would not respawn while players were still close to its spawn point. They fixed an issue in all modes on Checkpoint where the item cache in front of the movie theatre would not respawn under certain conditions. And finally, they've adjusted regions on high score for supply boxes in elimination to improve the game balance and ensure they respawn at the same rate as the other boxes on the map. Next, they made a few changes to weapon balance. The only real change when it comes to the weapon balance is they've changed the max ammo for the shorty. Next, they've balanced out the loadouts. For example, Crafter 3 has now been increased from 5 loadout points to 6 loadout points. The military sniper purchase weapon has decreased from 4 loadout points to 3 loadout points. The machete purchase weapon has also decreased from 4 loadout points to 3 loadout points. And lastly, strategist level 1 has decreased from 2 to 1 loadout point. These changes, especially to the last 3, should increase the amount of times we see these weapons in players' loadouts, hopefully. And lastly, there's a few miscellaneous fixes. Firstly, they fixed a late joining player receiving extra parts after a host migration occurs. And lastly, they fixed it where some player outlines would fail to draw when enemies were marked using Hawkeye 2 or 3. Overall, this is a very big patch that has addressed multiple issues. It's smoothing out the multiplayer even more than it was. This patch also paves the way to allow us to play the new DLC, Left Behind, which I should be bringing a review to you guys eventually after I've actually got through it. Now, as always, I'll leave a link down in the description below where you can check out all the patch notes as well as additional information on the patch. Anyway, I've been Darcblade, bringing you information about patch 1.06 for The Last of Us. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.